All right, so let's talk about prepping the actual panel itself. You'll remember from the video that this piece is kind of a funky piece. This is the big L-shaped piece. So in order to make this easier on us, what I like to do we're going to use our bodyguard knife, and again, there's going to be links and all that supplied. But how we do this is we want to roll out enough room to get our hand in between here. Kind of pinch this back. And the way that this works is it goes, you can see there's a Teflon on the bottom. So the idea here is this goes in between the vinyl and the backing paper, and it rests on the vinyl without cutting it. So we want to go in on this piece. Put you around here. What I'll do is I'll kind of flip up a little area of the vinyl enough to get the tool in here and get started, and then just should go right through. Okay. That's that. We're gonna do this in real time, so you guys can kind of get an idea of what this workflow looks like, because it's a bit of a pain to handle this piece. All right, so we're gonna do our normal wipe down with the detail spray. Guys, something else that's worth noting is while you're wiping down the panel, especially if you're doing this for a client, it's important to kind of take mental note of where the paint defects are. Like there's a couple little dots in the paint right here from the factory. Just so that more than anything you can explain it to the client later, but you know, like you've seen me do, sometimes we think it's debris and you lift it up and it's not debris, and you know, a lot of times that can damage the quality of the wrap a little bit. So ideally you don't want to pull it up if you can avoid it. And like we talked about, although this is not the hardest part on the car, it is my least favorite part, by far. Got to crawl on the ground a bunch, it's uncomfortable, it's a big piece, so there's a lot riding on it, so it's stressful because you know that if you mess it up, you got to go chop another 10 or 12 feet. A little water spray down in the area that we're initially going to be working on. Alright, I'm going to go grab the panel, show you guys how this works. We want to do a dry wipe real quick. goal here is just to get it in position without having the film on the ground. You can always move this, but we want to just get the rough position correct. Get some magnets in place. So we're good over here. We just need to come down ever so slightly. Like 2 inches or so. So maybe more than ever so slightly. Use the tape for the reinforcement. Since we dropped it down, come over here, drop this down. We'll come down even more with this. Where we want it. I gotta try to find my other turns. This is the Amazon Bodyguard knife. It is not nearly as good. I do not recommend this over the other one. The other one is worth spending the money on. Remember I put this piece of tape here, that's so I kind of know where we're at. So I should have explained what we're doing. So we're cutting this out to cut down how much material we have to manage. The less material, the easier it's going to be. So I cut that out. And then I'll also come in here. Kind of can feel where it is. Make sure everything's good before you do any type of cutting ever. And I kind of use my fingers like this to let me know where we're at, and I try to keep about this distance away. There we go. This guy here. Again, to keep these straps, this is what I use for the mirrors. All right, so what next, right? So basically what we're gonna do is start from the bottom. Start here, work our way up. So what this kind of looks like, and I'm gonna take off my shoes. Hope this isn't gonna lose anyone here, but it's much easier for me to work with sandals and much more comfortable. So I've been kind of doing this lately. It helps me with stress for whatever reason, and it's easier to get in here. So what we want to do is kind of move our magnet a little bit so we can get back here and start to peel this off the backing paper. I grab a corner, get a little shimmy to get it started. All right, perfect. Now once we get it started, now we just want to kind of carefully remove the backing paper, maybe like a foot or two at a time. Make sure that we're staying good here. And if you want, you can kind of tap this down at the bottom to keep it positioned. Maybe do a little small squeegee stroke. You may have to pop this up so you don't want to squeegee it all the way down, but it's a good way to start it. And then this is where we're just going to work slow, guys. We're not going to go crazy. There's no reason to go crazy. Everything's good. Until I'm getting my own pep, talking to myself. I hate doing this part. It's just, there's so many things going on, so many moving parts, so many places for this to go bad. here for where our tape is. Then we want to kind of hold in the center and pull down and get this started. That's what we want. Once we're past the magnet, we go ahead and move the magnet here. Start this just a little bit more. There we go. All right, we're going to root the tape. Our left hand, we're going to hold it firm. And we'll shimmy to get this on. Take a look to see what kind of happened or didn't happen. Shifted a little bit, but not too bad. Any slack we have right here, we're going to be able to pull out from the bottom, and we'll do that next. But for now, let's go ahead and stretch this. So this is similar to how we stretch the rear door. Make sure I forgot. I'm supposed to zoom out. All right, we get the idea. So we peeled this off. This is exactly what we're left with once we peel it off. We want to now stretch this like we stretch the kind of the top part of the rear door. So we want a lot of stretch to kind of go in through here so it sucks in. So this looks like this. We'll lift it up. I have our arms at either corner, or hands at either corner. I don't want to pull it all the way off, but enough. Okay? And I'm pulling pretty hard. So once this is down, I usually let this go, and then I'll come up here with two hands and really just like accentuate that, kind of like what we talked about. Pulling back with one hand, pulling up with another hand. Should look something like this. And then this side, we should just be able to glass. Just kind of give this a nice pull. Hook this corner. Come back here for some leverage. All right. Next step is I'll usually start cutting some of this off. It's another reason why I put the tape on there. It kind of lets me know where I'm at, so I don't cut too much off. Same thing here. And I'm going to kind of see I got these kind of wrinkles here. I'm going to sort of try to keep those out. So I'm going to pull them away to try to neutralize them for right this second. All right. So here comes kind of the finesse part. Let's make sure you guys can see this. So this looks a little bit like a mess, which is fine. Set this up just a bit. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go through here and we want to shrink it. So we'll kind of we'll just put a little, tiny little pull on this and just kind of let it sit, just to keep this area taut. Now we're going to pop this off. Actually, we'll pop this area off so I can get this. Yep, there we go. Pop this up and shrink it, guys. We don't want the film We don't want there to be drum tension right here. We want there to be loose tension, because if there's drum tension, you're going to get a line right here. So we're going to reduce the slack by lifting this up and dropping it in. But when I drop it in this time, I'm going to shrink it in. So I'm going to pop this off. And I'm going to shrink it while letting it kind of like fall in. And this works great with 3M. I've done this with gloss film, gloss 3M. It works great with most films. So now, the logic here on how we kind of squeegee this, because this looks pretty much ready to go, is we're going to squeegee. Remember we talked about the mouth. The biggest part of the mouth is right here. So we want to kind of squeegee the material into this area, like so. And I like to start here because this part's already basically flat on the car, so nothing crazy there. You're just squeegeeing as normal. Piece of debris. Remember how to handle that. Work quickly on it. A little bit of a line set. Okay. I got a bubble. None of this has been squeegeed, so I should be able to kind of push this down, and the air should go down there. So I wasn't pushing up, I was pushing down there. You can kind of see how I'm sort of doing like almost like a rounded motion. So I'm not just squeegeeing up, I'm kind of almost rolling up. And you're going to kind of sort of do the same thing here. You're rolling the film into this gap. And then here, same thing, you're kind of pulling a little bit left with your left hand, and then you're going to roll this into that mouth. So we're in on that side. Let's see if we can do this kind of in one shot. So we want to kind of chop the wrinkles when they get like this. So we're just hitting the tips. And you do this long enough, you can kind of start to see what they need in order to be neutralized. See, like we neutralized that area, now we're good to go. If I wanted, I could, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to feed this, but we're pretty much in. So we want to just gently cut those tips. And if you go one direction and it doesn't look like it's working, try the other direction. Feel this out. They call it reading the wrinkles. Can't necessarily hear that well, but I'm going to feed this little mouth. You can also use your glove. Same sort of thing, circle pattern, right? So we're just chopping the heads off these guys. So now our mouth is kind of like here, so I'm going to kind of try to shift this into this mouth, see what that does. pushing the tension into this mouth. It's kind of weird shit. The wrinkles get smaller, it's a little bit trickier. If you get into major resistance, let's pull it back just a little bit. It. Cool it. And these wrinkles are going to be much easier to manage now. So you can see we're just kind of chopping them down, even with the glove, just kind of chop it down. Feed, feed, feed. And so the first hardest part of this thing is that. The other thing you can do, there's no harm or no real foul in this, is you saw how we had it in the beginning before we lifted or cut or anything. If you wanted, you could heat this whole area, come in with the glove, and boom, boom, boom. That's what it's going to look like. So you're going to, one stroke to get all this down, then you're going to have to most likely come in to get the air out of here, and then one more up here. And you have to work incredibly fast. I don't love doing it that way because a lot of times you'll get a glue line. Some films you're just going to have to, especially if you're using a super sticky film, you're just going to have to go for it. Like Tech Wrap or KPMF or something like that. It may be easier to do it that way. But no foul doing it that way. It's just sometimes the film can discolor a little bit. I've never had it discolor so much that I had to redo anything, but it was noticeable to me, and that gets annoying. I'm pretty anal though, so I've realized that. But yeah, so I prefer to do it this way if I can. With the way that 3M shrinks, it lends itself to being able to do it this way, so yeah. So now that that's in, we're done with that part. So let's go ahead and squeegee. I like to start, I'm going to kind of cut it in half here and down there. So that's kind of why I started here. I'm basically separating this into its own piece so I can get this done, and then we'll focus on that next part by itself. It's a little different. Go nice and slow. No reason to go crazy fast here. Just pushing the air out. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and go through here with a dry wipe on this part down here as well. Just get anything that may or may not have shown up on here off. All right, so just looking at this, I don't think we need to lift this up. If you've got a lot of slack here, what you can do is pop this off and kind of pull it down, but we don't have a lot of slack. This just needs to be shrunk down. Satisfying? That's still satisfying to me. That's super cool. 3M is my favorite film for that reason. I love the way that it shrinks. It shrinks exactly the way I'm expecting it to. Whereas like KPMF, some of these other films, Hexus, they shrink like stupidly, and it makes it harder. It shrinks into a finger as opposed to just shrinking like you just saw that where the whole film shrinks and it like hugs stuff. KPMF and Hexus will form these little fingers when you try to shrink it, which makes it a lot harder to do the work. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna lift this. I don't think we need to. So we're just gonna squeeze you this. You get a little pocket right here, so you can kind of pop this up and sort of feed it in. There's a slight recess here. All right. This next part is a bench. This is where we start crawling on the ground. This is where things aren't very fun. We want to make sure you have the heat gun by you before you get on the ground, so you're not like halfway through this. Try to figure out how we want to go about this. I'm going to do my best here with this. I think this will give you a pretty good idea from this view. And let's get into it. Yeah, that's perfect. Magnet off, clips off. Pull this. This kind of heat, it looks a little funky in this area. It'll probably squeeze you just fine, but I like to kind of heat the area where we had it bridged. So we want to get it, the thing that's going to make this harder than anything is this door that's in the way. So we want to get past this door, like so. And then we're going to stretch. But we really want to look at right here and make sure that that is where we're getting enough stretch. Enough that we can seal it on this. And then we're going to kind of try to, depending on how big the gap is between the door here, we want to try to feed this in back there. I think we got it. I think we got enough to get this fixed. Pull the rest of it off. So now this time we want to make sure that underneath that door is where we have the right amount of tension. And I'm talking about right there. I don't want any wrinkles. We need that to be totally flat. And we also need to make sure we're not coming up short. So yeah, this part is a little tricky. And what I mean by coming up short is we need to make a tendency, what tends to happen is as you're pulling it this way, you tend to come down naturally. Especially trying to get around that, you tend to bring the film down. When you bring the film down, you may not have enough to go through on the top. I'm going to leave myself about 3 inches at this edge, and we'll bring the camera around when we get here and kind of show you. So we need to get the film tucked under this door because we don't want to leave. Right now we just have exposed adhesive essentially. It's just sticking up in the air. It's not ever really a good option or a good look or any of that. So if you have a pretty good door gap, you can just kind of jimmy it under here. Just kind of slide it under. And then once you've got that done, then you can kind of go through. I'm just going to squeegee down some of this. Make sure that we're good on our line. And squeegee this top part. I usually come back and do the bottom half of this at the end when the doors are shut. Makes it a lot easier. But for now, I just want to squeegee this like top inch right here and then get this stuck kind of to the other side. So we're not just having it adhesive, the vinyl sticking up in the air, getting all kinds of dust and shit on it. So same thing over here. Hopefully you can get a slightly better view. It's this body line right here that I'm talking about. We want to make sure that this is kind of our 50-50 point where we're working up from here, we're working down from here. So when I say that the second half, I'm referring to down, and we'll do that once the doors are shut because it's a lot easier on the body. The main thing is to get this top inch done and get the film back in there to try to prevent dirt, because this is already a really dirty area. And if you're getting dirt in here, don't get discouraged. Like, look, I'm just gonna call it how it is. Even if this whole thing was full of dirt on the bottom, it's so far down and so not where people look that it's not gonna be the end of the world. So don't freak out about that. Don't redo it. If you get a couple pieces, do your best to fish it out. But don't redo a panel because you're getting dirt in there. Okay, just trust me. Save yourself the sanity. It's something you're never gonna notice, never gonna bother you. All right, so we've got that started. So let's go over here and kind of show you how we do this. Well, we'll call it an end cap. Cute is that? All right. So we have this other door in the way. So we want to make sure that we kind of hit our line, and we're good there. Okay, and we're gonna kind of feed this up underneath the door. We're gonna try to feed it in, but we can't feed it in like last time because now we have this in the way. We have the fender in the way, blocking us. So we've got to do a bit of a relief cut. So we're gonna make a reverse L-shaped cut, basically so that we have enough material to tuck under here and hide the white, and then it's going to go straight up so that when we're looking through this gap, we have a nice line that sits in there to hide the white in between the door. So I work this up kind of as far as I need to onto the tape to where I'm already going to cut it, which is normally about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and then we're gonna just score the film, and we're not gonna go all the way to this edge. I'm gonna cut it about a 1/4 inch short of this edge as well. So a 1/4 inch above this edge, and then a 1/4 inch short of this edge is where we're gonna cut, and I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done. Fucking lights going in. So now, what I can do is kind of pull this off. Now that we've cut this out of the way, we can start to tuck this in. Wrap X. Okay, and then once we have this tucked past, now we want to do the same sort of thing. We want to jimmy it up and back in there. And seal the deal on the surrounding area. That top edge. That part. See, there's a wrinkle there. We want to get all that sealed in. If you get any bubbles, just pop it to the top. All I'm doing is squeezing. You're not missing anything. All right. Finish this. Finish this. You're gonna need the heat. Make sure you guys can see this. So, kind of how I do this is I'm going to pull this off maybe like an inch or two, like that. And I'm going to kind of heat this area, not really so much back here, more so right here. When I stretch now, I'm going to stretch down diagonal and up diagonally at the same time. And kind of roll it in at the same time. It's not a big deal, just pop these out. Make sure this is nice and flat. Okay, now you see we got a small bulge right here. So what we can kind of do right here now that we stretched a little bit around here is straight this down. Like that. Boom. Okay. I usually stop and come back to this now. Go do the rest of the car, or go do the rest of the quarters. Let's go back to it. Back on track. So we'll start here. kind of just like get this nice and fed in so there's not any wrinkles or anything. Here we're gonna cut about 1/3 of an inch above the edge. And we're gonna make that same kind of cut. We're gonna make that same type of, in this case it is gonna be an L-shaped cut, where we cut, and then right before we get to the edge, we're gonna go straight up. And what that does is that when we feed the film under, you have that nice straight edge that should go right underneath this edge and hide all the white. That's the idea. So let's get in here. I gotta get a new light. Haven't clicked the blade in a while, so let's make sure we got a freshie. About 1/3 of an inch above this line. As you can see here, even on camera, the line is not always super visible. It's the tape. To be honest, I cut a little closer at the beginning edge than I really wanted to, so hopefully we're not short. Should be fun. Same kind of thing up here, do that reverse kind of L. More than anything, we're leaving ourselves a pull tab like we've been doing the whole time, so it's nothing really new. It's kind of really what we're doing, and then come back over here. Find where it is, and then come straight up. So maybe this will kind of help. You see the L here. So we have an L right here, and then an exaggerated L here. All right. Secret sauce time. So what we want to do now is take a piece of backing paper and we're going to cut it into a rectangle. About 3 or 4 inches wide, several inches long, doesn't have to be exact, don't cut yourself. I'm trying to do this in the air. Something like that. You want to fold it in half. Really make sure you got a nice sharp crease. Okay. And then what we're going to do with this, I found my hard squeegee. We want to get our hard edge squeegee. And we want to go through and kind of lift get the film off the car, off the tape. Just be gentle here, because sometimes you can lift this and it can tear. So just be gentle to get it started. Yeah, that's going to be pretty close to coming up short there. That's close. can go ahead and pop this off too right now. And just be really careful lifting this up to not accidentally get the vinyl hooked in there. Ruin this piece real quick. I'll just fold that over. All right, so the way that this trick works, now that we have everything pulled up, is we want to go in here and fold this down. And just like we put the towel underneath this rubber back here, we want to kind of lift this up and slide this underneath. And that should give you a really good view of what's going on. It needs to be under the rubber, not just under the metal. Okay. We're going to come in with our hard squeegee and just see what I'm looking here for. Just big picture, what we're doing is this is acting as like something that the vinyl can just slide right past. We use the hard squeegee to push the vinyl with no resistance, and it just goes right underneath the rubber like we need it to. So get this started. I'll start all the way up here, and I'll usually use my hand just to kind of get it started. And then once I get the squeegee under there, it'll just kind of go off after that. And we're kind of doing that Pac-Man thing, but we're being very gentle. We don't want resistance. It should just flow nicely. So stick the squeegee in, and I'm kind of doing this. But be very careful, because it's really easy for the film to get messed up doing this. So maybe practice. You know, if you're nervous or you're not quite sure about this, practice. It's getting a little tight here, which is okay. Just got to make sure that you're really just making sure that that film is staying how it needs to. You really only get one shot at this because you don't have the ability to pull this off and fix it if something goes wrong. Almost there, guys. Really is just going to get tight in the middle, and then we'll loosen out on the edges. So when we get to this edge right here, we want to stick this in just to the end of the rubber, because we kind of want this to tuck in and then just land on the kind of the other side of the rubber. Okay. It's tough about filming this solo. So we're going to stick this in. We want to kind of hold this to guide it as much as we can, and we're going to keep this taut as we slide it under this rubber. Didn't go in as clean as I want it, so I'm gonna have to get in here with the tweezers and see if I can. Sometimes it's like this. I would love to be able to take this part out the car. I don't know why they made it so that you can't feasibly remove it. I don't think you should ever put a part on a car that can't be removed easily. So the film ripped a little bit in here, which I'm not really going to be able to show. So if it rips, it's fine. Sometimes you just have to kind of lift it and change the direction so that you don't come up short. So that's basically what I did. We should be fine now. Okay, so that's that. And I can go back over this if you want. And just kind of make sure everything is nice and squeegee down. Okay. Feeling pretty good about that. So that's a pretty important technique to know how to do. As you can see, super clean. All right, so we'll stop there and we'll go to this next. Go ahead and get your glove out. Just warm this up lightly. I ended up with a massive glue line on this edge, so I'm gonna see what if I can do anything. All right. Make sure that the film is down solidly on the knifeless tape. Now, because I snipped the film here and basically overlapped this bottom part over the top part, I want to pull this part first. So I'm going to get in here, cut a little bit of this out, so give me some room. Knifeless tape. Pull the knifeless tape, get it started. When we get here, we want to make sure that we get through, and then we'll stop, and we're going to put our finger on it again, and then pull. And make sure that we get through cleanly, because that area where it overlaps can get a little funky. And then try to pull your knifeless tape down at an angle so that you have some, like our little pull tail. All right. Next step is we want to tuck everything in. I used to do this a little bit differently than I do it now, but I found that this is kind of the best way to do it. So we want to pull the bottom tape out. And we want to follow it here and make sure that this doesn't get totally stuck on here. Okay, I'm going to get this under here, and I'm going to warm it gently and stretch ever so slightly. Now we're going to do very similar to what we did with the charge port. We're going to try to feed this in. Charge port will usually shift a little bit. You see how I just kind of twisted it? It's a nice way to get the film back behind here. Again, this is another one of these areas that we want to be cautious, on the safe side. Not that there's not ways to fix this if we mess it up, but this area particularly is kind of a focal point, so here we go. Alright. It's the hardest part to get around is this top part. Kind of like with the charge port, you don't need to we don't want to necessarily tuck in this part yet. I guess that's fine. Alright. Kind of like what we were talking about with the charge port, is you can just leave the film kind of tucked around here. We're going to want to heat it to shrink it down. But let's go ahead and finish. The way that I used to do this is I would really stretch all this out right here and then actually open this, then set it all down. But it only takes, one accident where that lid comes up and rips the film, where it made sense for me to find a better way to do it. And the new Model S, the way that the charge port comes out is you almost can't do it that way. It does this weird, open straight up. So it almost grabs any film that you have right here. So I had to kind of figure out another way. That's why I started doing it differently. It's because of the new Model S. Got everything tucked in. Once you've got everything tucked in, you can either just lift this up, or you can take it off car wash mode. I'm gonna try to get you in close so you can see kind of what I'm talking about with the wrinkles. So we have these little tiny wrinkles right here. Very gently, just want to lift this up. Just a little bit. Some of these you can kind of go in and get with your tool. Just lift it up just a little bit more. I don't want to use my tweezers here because it does kind of damage the edge of the film. I'm going to kind of have to. I can't get in here. Just be very gentle. Guys, these are just generic fingernail clippers as well. I'm sure there's better clippers you can buy. Tweezers. I don't call them clippers. Alright. That's what we want. And now we're just going to hit it with heat. Watch the magic happen. Seal the deal. And should look pretty familiar. I'm just going to leave this here and leave that there for now. And let's see. That's basically what it should look like. So what I'll do here is a cut and fold. .45-degree angle this way. And it's going to be an overlap like this. So, like that. I want to get in here, right at kind of the top of this corner. Split it. I'm going to take this side, and with tension, I'm going to set it down. And I want to make sure that it's 100% flat right here. I don't want to see any gap there. A little tiny piece of excess, we cut our little pull tail off, like so. Okay, now we're going to do the overlap. Okay, usually helps to heat this a little bit. And then we're going to pull with just enough tension so that there's not a wrinkle at the top right here. And there's like a very, very tiny little dot. I don't think you can see it. You can barely see it. So this comes out pretty clean. And sometimes you can actually go back in and heat and it'll go away. But that's totally fine. Professional, clean, not something that is obvious at all. All right. I'm gonna zoom out. I'll show you kind of how we handle this area. Now that we've got that edge down, that corner. All right, shrinky shrink time. Let that sit and cool. The purpose of letting the film cool, just to kind of go over why we're doing that, is if I were to heat that and then immediately try to like feed it in like this, for example, when the film is hot, it stretches really easily. So when I go and I try to start feeding it or squeegee it and it's hot, everywhere that I squeegee is going to show a glue line, clear as day. One right after the other, after the other, after the other. So you learn quickly, you can't really work the film when it's hot. You can stretch it and lay it down, or just flatten it and lay it down, but you can't really squeegee it. So if you heat it and you shrink it, give it a second to cool, blow on it, that works totally fine. And we're just gonna feed this in now that it's shrunk, and we're gonna kind of read our wrinkles. Get this done. We kind of want to work away. This is the hardest part right here, so we kind of want to work away from that, just like we do the corners, to try to do that whole hugging action. And there if you saw that, you can see how this works. So you got tension here, you got a wrinkle there. I'm smoothing out that wrinkle, and what it's effectively doing is it's tightening this area in here. So every finger stroke I do that, I can see it. This film's going this way, which is ultimately tightening around the back of this, and that's what we want. We want to create tension where we want it, and neutralize it where we don't. A raised object here, just cut around it and get it out of the way. And when an area doesn't go down as easily as you want it to, that's usually the things that you want to really post-heat. And we had to fight that a little bit. There's some small wrinkles. You can see here, you kind of got wrinkles, wrinkles, wrinkles. So we want to post-heat this before we do any type of cutting or anything like that. This is another cut and fold, so let's get up in here. Here's a little bit different, because ideally we want the overlap. I gotta think here. We want the overlap to be facing this way, kind of like away from view, as opposed to this way where the edge of the overlap is facing out. We want the edge of the overlap to be facing this way. So that means we want when we do our cut and fold, this part's going to be the top, this part's going to be the bottom. So, get in. Cut. We're going to leave our little pull tail. And then what I kind of do with the pull tail is I get this out of the way. Because sometimes you can accidentally hit this with your arm or your finger and rip this whole corner before you even had a chance to get it down. So I like to stick it out of the way. Fold it around, boom, there we go. Pretty much out of the way. And then now, we go in here and kind of work this around, work this down. Sometimes you work in inches, sometimes you work in millimeters. This is one of these work in millimeters times. Detail work gets a little maddening. You're focused on a very, very small task. And you got tweezers, I got an X-Acto knife basically. This is why people who rap charge what they charge. Much better. Okay. Now we grab our top piece. Hit it with a little heat. Now we're gonna pull. Tiny wrinkle, neutralize it. It's about as good as I can do it. Don't heat too much. You never want to heat the film where it's bridged. So if like here is perfect, you can heat as much as you want, but like if the film is floating over something, if you heat there, it'll burn where the film is floating. So always make sure it's actually stuck down before you heat it. I'm gonna go ahead and post-heat this. Not post-heat, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of give it a good heat before we cut. In here so you can kind of see what this looks like from the back side. So that relief cut that I made was right here to get in there. I just slit like a little C-shaped piece out. You see my knifeless tape comes down here. Obviously all this gets covered, but this allows us to get full coverage around the back so that we're not seeing white. And this film blends in so well that you can't even tell that there's just a random, you know, our overlap piece is going in here. We got that inlay. So that's what's nice about a film like this is you can't really tell. That looks super clean. So let's blast this area with heat. You never want to pull knifeless tape when the film is hot. You never want to cut the film when it's hot. It's going to be really hard. So what I'm looking here for is movement. You know, do these wrinkles get sharper and pull onto the part that we're wrapping? If they do, you're in trouble. You've overstretched it. So if you heat it, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of movement and these wrinkles start to form, boom, 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 a bunch one after the other, and they go on to where you've wrapped, then you know you overstretched the film. And you're gonna have to do something. You're gonna have to tape it, you have to figure something else out, because it's not gonna stay. Some of these wrinkles are a little close for comfort, so I'm just going to kind of chop them down. Some of this may actually have gotten overstretched. If it does, if you got some overstretching in here, I think it's totally fine to put a piece of lamb tape over this, or cut a strip of the gray and just run a nice clean strip right over this edge. No sense spending, it didn't make any sense, and nor do I think a client would want you to spend an extra 2 hours to redo this whole thing because of a couple little tiny fingers right here. So keep that in mind. It's not a what they don't know won't hurt them. It's never that type of thing. It's a be reasonable and logical type thing. You can go to 100 customers and be like, hey, would you want me to spend another 2 hours and 13 feet of material to rewrap this because of a couple wrinkles in a spot that you're never gonna see, that I can cover up with tape and have it look fine? 99 out of 100 of them are gonna say, yeah, absolutely, do not wrap it. So it's not a what they don't know won't hurt them. It's a what would a reasonable person expect, what would a reasonable person do? And that's kind of that's my barometer. That's my indicator. Be reasonable, you know, be fair. Golden rule type shit. I'm not gonna make someone rewrap a whole panel because they had to use some lamb tape. I don't even know what lamb tape is if I'm the customer. You know, so you have to look at it like that. If I put a piece of tape right here, you're not even gonna see it. It's gonna be invisible. So, this is about as good as I can do it. To be 100% honest, that looks great. So we're gonna let that set up. I am gonna clean this up right here. There's got like a little kind of funky spot at the end here that you're gonna wanna clean up. So let's do that. We're an hour and 22 minutes. Yeah, this is a 2 hour to 2.5 hour panel. Thought I was making good time yesterday, and then all of a sudden it was 12 o'clock and almost 90 degrees in here. I was like, no! That's so bad. Bingo. I'm gonna shut this trunk. We're done. I always like to kind of close things, take the tape off as I finish. I think it's pretty obvious now why I was kind of talking this panel up. It's a lot going on, guys. It's a lot going on. This will probably take some of you all day, and don't feel bad if it does. You know, maybe set aside a whole day for this. Because yeah, this is just, it's a lot. Just trim the blade, we're good there. All right, so the next step is, let's just get this tucked under here real quick. Same thing as last time. If you have to kind of lift and jimmy, that's fine. Okay. Perfect. Before we do this, we're going to cut this. The technique I'm going to use to cut this bottom is one that, if you can master, is going to really come in valuable. And it's being able to cut clean and straight on a very tight gap without cutting the car and keeping it nice and straight. And if you do that, you're going to get just enough material to roll over and hide the white. Here, the way that these cars are built, you can see in here a good amount more. So in order to hide the white, you're going to have to do that whole 1/3 of an inch thing until right about here. Then you transition into this cut. So I've got tape right until here on purpose, so I'm going to cut on this edge and then try to finesse the knife perfectly onto this edge without cutting the car or anything like that. But that's the thought process here. So let's see how I do. About a 1/3 of an inch. More than a 1/3 of an inch, not too long. Change my body position. Just got the tip of the blade out, resting it here on the edge of the bumper. Just the tip of the blade. And then when I get to the edge here, slow down. Now we're going to cut straight down. Not at an angle this time, straight down. So we can roll in here and not come up short. Okay. Create our little pull tail up here. There's a little more that I want to put down in here. I'm just going to trim this ever so slightly. So the bottom part you can just tuck. Some people with heat under the body line do the body line first. I think that's not a bad idea. Just kind of just jam it with your thing, your squeegee. You can also use the wrap axe. The wrap axe is interesting. It's pretty nice. It's just different. I don't necessarily like the ergonomics of it. It's not the most like. It's kind of awkward to wield, but I like it for some things. So that's gonna definitely be in my quote unquote stable. All right, pop this up. Careful, don't let it rip, so we want to be gentle to get it started. This is another part we want to be careful about. You do not get a second chance here. This twist going back behind, you're taking the bumper off to fix it. Or we're doing something shady, like our favorite shops do. You can loosen this right here. So there's a little tab. Kind of just pull up and over, and that'll come out, and see that loosens. So we can loosen that tab a little bit, or just kind of pop all these if you want. All right, and then we're gonna want to start kind of feeding the film into this gap as much as we can. Usually starting up here makes the most sense because you have better access. What you can do, this is something I do a lot, is you can kind of shove, again, plastic moves. So you can kind of wedge certain instances. You wedge your squeegee in here, and it gives you just enough space to get everything in. It's really important to make sure that this film that you've shoved in here is squeegeed all the way down and not just floating in here. So like down here, for example, I've got some wrinkles. It's not all the way down. It's not gonna work. So you need to really go through, and you can see it with your own eyes. Once you kind of get this done, you kind of just need to go through and just make sure that this is all down flat. Because what happens is if it's not down flat, eventually it'll start to lift and hit this edge, and then it'll bunge up and roll on itself. It's something that's pretty common with Teslas, unfortunately, because their panel gaps are inconsistent. So one side may have a nice gap like this side does, and then the other one will usually have no gap. So Tesla's still got some things to figure out. That's one of them. All right, so we're on our web. Another cut and fold here. You see how we have all this film standing up? There's no way to make this into a corner. Not feasibly at least. So we're going to do a cut and fold. And our overlap is going to be this piece. So we're going to cut kind of right at the base here. Right about here. Okay. Kind of doing work twice here, but that's okay. Okay. Notice when I'm done cutting, I'm clicking my blade back in. In case it's not obvious why, it's super easy to do one of two things with the knife open. You know, you leave it open, you go right into the car, or just as bad, right into the wrap. So I'm already using a metal knife, which isn't necessarily ideal, but this is my favorite knife. So when you're done with the blade, it's best usually to put the whole thing in your pocket or back in your tool belt after you're done with it. So that way you're not doing this thing, you not put it in your mouth. I've dropped it out of my mouth onto the car and damaged a panel. So it's these types of things that you'd rather not learn the hard way if you can avoid it. So when you're done with your knife, click the blade and just put it away. All right. I don't know about y'all, I need a break. So here's what we've done so far. This part is done. It's the hardest part. So if you've made it this far, congratulations. You're home free now. You'll definitely be able to get the rest of this. We've already done some feeding like we have to do here on the front door, so that's not going to be anything different there. So let's move right along. This area This isn't too bad. This part's not too hard. Once you kind of get the hang of it, go in here and kind of pop this off. We're gonna hit this part first. And what we want to think about here is doing everything evenly. So what I do down here, I want to do up here, that sort of thing. And we're going to work away from here. As you can see, look, we have enough film here that I can fold it on itself. That's slack. So when you have slack, you can't put the film anywhere because it immediately turns into wrinkles. So if I try to go in here, I immediately get wrinkles right here, and there's nothing I can do. So that ain't gonna work. So, and if we were to work towards this area, we're basically working film into an area that we already have slack, and that ain't gonna work. And this isn't a mouth really, because it's not really a mouth, because it's kind of like, I don't know, forget about that. But we want to work away from this. So we're going to heat this area in here. And you kind of want to look for the wrinkles to go away, you know, so it looks kind of like that, like stretchy. And I'm going to use my thumb, I'm going to push down and go down, and then I'm going to push up and go up. Push down, go down. Push up, go up. And I'm kind of like, you know, helping the film go where I need it to go, obviously, with while I'm doing this. It's not going to just go exactly where it needs to go, but it is for the most part. And you get to the knifeless tape, good to go. So that's the hardest part of this. Kind of once you have this started, this is how it goes. So for the rest of this, here's kind of how I do this. Heat in my right hand, hold it off the car with my other hand, keep slack. And I'm just basically rolling the film into the gap. We're not working away from a corner this time, so you just kind of want to work this down. And as you're working it down, since you're kind of keeping it taut with the other hand, you're not going to have any wrinkles because it's going to go in with zero slack. Zero slack. So, yeah, just like this. You're going to want your glove for this. Work it down. Once you get it into the gap, because of the way that you do this, all you have to do is just kind of run your finger on the adjacent side, and it'll go in there, just like so. So this area is done. All of that. Same thing, get down here. Now we have a mouth. Now we want to feed the film kind of into this mouth, because we don't have slack. So we have an area where we can just kind of push the film in, and it'll go easily. So it makes it easier on us, because it's just, we take advantage of the mouth, and we just slide the film in there. Everything's good. So if this is the surface, I'm kind of like pushing down and then going to the, like that's what I'm doing. I'm pushing and I'm going right or left. All right, this side is done. Same exact thing on the other side. Run your finger on the edge, kind of helps get it a little bit started towards the direction you want to go. When it's flat, it's easy. You could squeegee this if you wanted to. That's the other technique. If you want, you can get in with your squeegee and just 45-degree angle to the surface, and then just kind of let it go. Let it feed it in. So we're not parallel to the surface. We're 45-degree angle. That way, we're not going to get wrinkles. Here's my favorite catchphrase. It's looking pretty good. I'll see if I can get the camera in here. Yeah. So this is the end part. And what ends up happening is the film gets stuck here, and then it will not sit all the way down in there. So you have to get in here with your knife and do a small relief cut. You can kind of pull this whole thing off the car. Oh, not the whole thing, but you're gonna have to just kind of get this little edge right here off the car. This is what's holding it up. I'm getting all the way down. So you want to be very careful here, but you want to get as far down as you can. And then you're just going to make a little slit above the knifeless tape, going basically straight up. And then that'll give you enough leeway, enough relief to get that all the way in there against the knifeless. So now we're good. Okay. Little tip there. Now, all right. Now we're going to heat a little bit. Once we get this done, we can close the doors. I'm not really post-heating, I'm just hitting this with heat to see what it does. If you hit it with heat and it just moves very slowly or it doesn't do anything, you're good. If you hit it with heat and it immediately retreats. So let me show you kind of what I'm talking about. How do I demonstrate this? So here you can tell that it's kind of overstretched a little bit. That's why we have the wrinkles. So I'm going to try to hit it with heat. And then I'm going to stretch out these wrinkles to flatten this area out. Okay. And I'm going to pull it about right here. And I'm going to hit it with heat. And you can see it immediately starts moving. And it gets these types of things. You don't want that. So the reason why I go in here to hit this with heat is if I don't get any movement or it just kind of does its thing and chills, then we know we're good. If it starts doing that, then we know we're in trouble. So, I mean, this can kind of be fixed. You know, you can try to lift the whole area up and try to reposition the tension. So, you know, sometimes you have the ability to kind of go left or right with it and kind of take the tension and redistribute it, and sometimes that can take it out. You know, this was obviously just an example, but yeah. And there's a better example of what it looks like. So if you've got that going on, or you have wrinkles like this going over the Nyquist tape or up onto the panel, you're gonna be in trouble. And with that couple, take care of this stupid ass area. I'm gonna do a relief cut. Had this taped back and apparently it came off. Awesome. Doing too much over here. It's really funky to get the film back behind there for full coverage. So I'd prefer to have this out of the way. Work fast. A relief cut right here. This out of the way. And to kind of get this back here, I want to pull this way while pushing back. Sitting back here. You know, sometimes you get yourself in trouble by trying to be too cute. A prime example. I don't know, all this shit. Tape everywhere, wrap sticking to it. fine. Alright, I kind of made a mess of this top part here, which is fine. It's going to end up being okay, but instead of making it worse, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut across the knifeless tape where I've got it. So then that way I can start it a little bit lower down instead of trying to mess with all this stuff up here. Because that's just, there's plastic, there's all kinds of bullshit in the way, and it's just not gonna work. You guys won't have this issue because you're not gonna have a car that has some crazy part glued down for no reason in your way. Alright. No harm, no foul. Might have to clean this up a little bit, which is fine. We pull the knifeless tape carefully, making sure that we're pulling perpendicular as much as possible. Okay. Get all the trash out. Pull the 2 strands of the knifeless tape out. All right. Get in with our glove. Just gonna seal the edge. Alright, so I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I got a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of white showing up in here, which is fine. Alright. Good there. Yeah, sometimes this part was funky. I'm gonna call this down here. Let's hit this with a quick post-it. The most important area to post heat is really here. Nothing else gets a ton of stretch. So I get this side of I get the passenger door side. I don't really do the front door side. It's never failed on me, so. calling that. All right, so good news and bad news. Good news, we're almost done. Bad news, back on the floor time. Okay, so as we discussed before, now we're going to work from the body line down. So usually this looks a little like this. We're going to kind of pick up the film, heat it, and lay it down. Create glass. Still recording. Create glass, and then we're going to squeegee. Repeat. Shrink, squeegee. We're basically like shrink wrapping this. Cold stretched. Cold stretch just means that we stretch the film without using heat. In case that wasn't clear. Alright, the end cap is a little tricky. We stretched in here, so we really want to shrink this down. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to use my finger to try to roll the film around this back edge. So I've kind of unstuck it from the side of the car, and now I'm going to feed it around the back. The idea here is that I don't want this to fail. So I'm going to give it a little bit more film to wrap around the back side of it, hopefully increase our chances that it's not going to fail. I'm also going to, when I cut, I'm going to cut an 1/18 of an inch outside, or 1/16 of an inch outside the edge, so I can wrap that over as well, maybe more like 1/4 of an inch, wrap that around, and then that will help give us longevity. Probably cut a little bit more than I wanted to, but it's not a big deal. Just roll this around and stick it in here, and it's fine. As long as it's stuck, it's not going to go anywhere. To do another cut and fold. This is very similar to the one that we did right by the charge port, on the bottom side of the charge port. So I'm going to cut across. Okay, so we get that cut first. Now, this is where it gets tricky, is we have to tuck this. Tuck this film in here with your tool as clean as possible. This is where it gets tough. So you can see I got like this weird little like wrinkle here. We want to pull that out, and then now we're going to try to heat it. Yep, we saw that shrunk a little bit, which is perfect. And then now we want to lay it down. Try to get that wrinkle out when we lay this down. And pull a little bit from the back. Perfect. I hate this panel, guys. It's my least favorite panel on any Tesla. Model Y, piece of cake. Takes like a half hour, 45 minutes. Tesla Model S sucks. It's a big panel, kind of like this. Model X, not bad at all. It's another small panel like the Y. But this one is just it's doozy. Cut in there nice and clean. Seal down. Pull off the tape. Let's work this down now. scrap axes. Liking it more and more. Might be a permanent addition going on here. All right, one more cut and we're done. Woohoo! See, nothing against Justin Pate, but he would have filmed this video and it would have been 10 minutes long. And I'm not really sure like how that would help someone, you know, especially a beginner. So let's go ahead and kind of shrink this. Oh, we're not done to snug the wheel well. So lay down here and take a nap and then we'll do it. There's a gap under here, you're just going to tuck it in. Kind of use your so you're going to get down here